Come on. We have to find it. Come on.
I want to go in there.
Amy, we have to. It's okay, come on. Let's just ring it. Here, it's cracked.
Hey guys, what's happening? Niyat here with Film Comics Explained, and as voted for by everyone in the latest poll, today we'll be diving into The Ruins. Based on the novel of the same name by Scott Smith, The Ruins is a 2008 horror film directed by Carter Smith that stars Jena Malone, Jonathan Tucker, Shawn Ashmore, Laura Ramsey, and Joe Anderson. A relaxing holiday to Mexico turns into a nightmare when a group embark on a journey to explore a remote archaeological dig site in the jungle. The exploration changes into a fight for survival when they encounter something evil in the ruins. Amy and Stacy are on vacation with their boyfriends Jeff and Eric at a Cancun resort when Amy realizes she's lost an earring. A fellow tourist called Matthias finds it in the pool and returns it to her. Grateful, they ask him to join them for a drink. Returning the favor, he invites him to join him and his friend Dimitri on a trip to a remote ancient ruin that his brother Heinrich was at with a Dutch archaeologist.
So, what do you guys think? Ancient Mayan temple off the beaten path? I don't know, a little culture before we leave?
They continue the party on the beach, and after Jeff calls it a night, a drunken Amy makes a move on Matthias, one that he rebuffs like a Giga Chad. Getting off a bus the next morning, the six have difficulty finding a ride to the secluded ruins 14 miles away, and for good reason. A driver initially tells them that the place is no good, offering to take them to another tourist spot with pyramids, but eventually agrees to drive them when offered US dollars. The group are completely unprepared. Not only is Amy hungover and wearing flip-flops, unaware that they're about to hike for miles, but she rightfully points out that they had no way of getting back as they don't have reception to call for a ride.
Wait, how are we gonna get back?
We're gonna call them when we get out.
With what? We're not gonna get a signal out here.
My phone should work. It's a vault phone.
Finding Henrik's truck abandoned, they decide to proceed ahead using horror movie logic. Spotting local children in the distance, they wander through the jungle and stumble on a clearing that leads them to the ruin.
Aren't you glad you came?
Thank you. Hey, Stace.
While they all stand enamored by the sight, they're surprised by men on horses that start shouting at them. Confused, they turn around and try and find out what they did wrong. Initially, they assume that they need to pay a fee, but the leader shakes his hand saying that is not the issue. Amy continues taking photos and steps back onto the vines covering the ruin, agitating the men who begin to freak out. Thinking that they're angered by the photos, Dimitri also steps onto the vines to retrieve Amy's camera and hand it over to them as an apology. But as he gets closer to them, he is hit in the chest with an arrow and then shot in the face, much to the horror of everybody else. What the group don't realize is that the men are actually trying to quarantine the site. Stunned, the friends retreat up the ruins and are surrounded by more of the villagers.
Stacy, look at me! Come on, we gotta go, come on!
There's more coming!
At the top of the summit, they find an abandoned camp and a shaft in the center, along with Heinrich's dead body covered in vines. While they can't get a signal, they hear what appears to be the faint noise of Heinrich's phone coming from the bottom of the deep shaft below them.
The cell phone?
Heinrich's.
Are you sure?
Yes, his ringtone. You had the same phone.
How can there be a signal? There's not a signal up here.
It's definitely a phone.
Desperate, Matthias loops a rope around him, and the others slowly lower him down with an overhead crank. To their horror, the rope snaps and he plunges to the bottom. After they repair it, Stacy volunteers to go down after him in the phone. Unfortunately, because of the length they lost with the earlier fall, she's forced to unhook herself and jump, but lands knee first onto a lantern. Pulling a shard from her knee, Stacy hobbles over to Matthias, who explains he can't feel his legs, having broken his back.
You guys, I think he broke his back. He can't move his legs, and it smells.
Like what?
Like shit.
As Jeff and Eric begin making a backboard to load him onto for the rescue, a furious Amy runs down to the bottom of the steps to beg the villagers for help. Frustrated, she rips out a chunk of the vines from the ruin and throws it at the men, hitting one of the children from earlier. Just as they had done with the group, they tell him to go up the ruins and shoot him when he refuses, much to the horror of his mother. With Amy returning to the others, they determine the reason they're marked for death is because they touched the vines. Filled with guilt, Amy agrees to be lowered into the shaft so that she and Stacy can load him onto the backboard.
1, 2, 3. Oh my God! Just get on!
They all make it out of the shaft, and as Jeff, who's a pre-med student, inspects Matthias's injuries, the couples argue about what to do next. While they don't find any painkillers or medication for him among the site, Jeff locates Dimitri's plane ticket. Easing their tension, he reasons that when he doesn't make the 7:05 flight in the morning, his friends at the resort, who he'd given a detailed map of their location to, would be sure to look for him.
So when he doesn't show up tomorrow, his friends are definitely gonna know that something's wrong.
How will they know where we are?
They have the map. Dimitri copied the map for him.
Deciding it best not to move Matthias further, they cover him up in blankets and sleep in the tent, waiting to be rescued. The horror continues the next morning, with Stacy waking up to find vines growing into the cut on her knee. Chris removes about a foot of greenage from her when Matthias tells Amy to pull the blanket off of his body, sensing something is wrong with his legs. She obliges, and to everyone's horror, they find vines have also sprouted all over his lower half overnight. The vines aren't an ordinary plant, but a highly adaptive, vicious parasitic organism that consumes anything it manages to plant its roots into.
You hurt?
What? Oh my God. It's inside my leg.
Get it out! 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 Get it out!
Appearing in the book, the unnamed species of parasitic flora are incredibly aggressive and will use tactics such as deception to lure fresh prey into their reach. They produce offshoots that take root whenever they come into contact with something to consume. Then they burrow into the skin and grow inside, utilizing moisture and nutrients within to propagate. Since the ruins seen both in the book and the movie are Mayan, the vines are probably related to the ancient Mayan practice of blood sacrifice. The Mayans may have, as the present-day natives do, worshipped the vines, seeing them as evidence of either divine purpose, avatars of the divine themselves, or sources of godly malevolence. The villagers have taken to salting the earth around the ruins to prevent the spread, and have been executing anything that crosses the line, regardless of whether they came into contact with the vines or not. This would suggest that they fear rather than worship the vines which have engorged on blood over centuries. Like Venus flytraps and some species of sundews and pitcher plants that consume insects and small vertebrates like frogs, lizards and mice by dissolving their tissue into digestive enzymes, the vines use the same process to free up nutrients for the plant to absorb. Not realizing the vines were capable of deception, they hear the phone ringing in the shaft again, and the girls descend inside to look for it. Armed with handmade torches, they pass through the maze of vines. They hear the phone ringing again and enter a room containing Heinrich's dead girlfriend, who's been consumed. To their wonder, they find the phone on her, but it's revealed to have been broken the whole time. Hearing another phone ringing, Amy approaches the direction the sound is coming from and stares at one of the red flowers on the vines. As she gets closer, we see the inside of the flower vibrating. It, along with the other flowers, had been recreating the sound of a cell phone ring by vibrating their stamens. Like a Venus flytrap, it lures the mesmerized Amy closer. When she goes to touch it, the vines reveal their true nature, ensnaring her hand in the trap. Losing their torches to vines that begin closing in on them, they escape just in time. Only now is the true nature of their dilemma realized. The vines will consume them if they stay, and the villagers will kill them if they try to leave. Inspecting Matthias's leg, Jeff informs them that he won't survive another day due to infection. While they don't reach a consensus on what to do with him, Matthias weakly tells them to cut them off if there's a chance he can live. The girls go to the tent and the boys complete the job, using a heated pan to cauterize his wound. Shocking everyone, the vines then claim the flesh that Jeff had cut away, but this is only the beginning. As Amy and Eric talk outside in the evening, unable to sleep, Stacy awakens to the sound of moans and sighs. Seeing the pair together, she accuses them of cheating and the four begin to argue. What they don't realize until it's too late is that this was just another distraction that enabled the plants to claim the rest of Matthias. Stacy then tells them that she can feel the vines inside of her, but it's not until Jeff calls the other two over in the morning that they realize she was not lying. Under her skin are multiple vines slithering like snakes. Jeff is able to cut into her and remove them, but when Stacy hysterically insists that she can feel more of them in her body and head, they all see one moving on her brow. She begs them to cut again, but Jeff tells her that they can't as she'd already lost too much blood. Waking up the next morning, the three look on horrified to find Stacy standing in a pool of her own blood, having spent the morning removing the invading weeds on her own. Jeff tries to take the knife away from her, and she lashes out, cutting him on the palm of his hand. Eric does the same and is stabbed in the chest by his crazed girlfriend. Just as they did with Matthias, the vines come forth to claim him. Realizing what she had done and on the verge of dying herself, Stacy begs them to kill her, a plea that is reiterated by the plants that also repeat her request, and accepted by Jeff, who puts Stacy out of her misery. Covering Amy in blood and giving her the keys to Heinrich's Jeep, he explains that she has to run while he creates a diversion. Placing her body at the foot of the steps, implying that she was dead, Jeff goes on a tirade about his aspirations, dreams, and the people that they let die. He wanders to one side, taking their attention with him as he yells out Amy's name, her cue to run. Jeff is then hit with arrows before the leader of the tribe finishes him off with a shot to the head. Meanwhile, Amy runs off with the men in pursuit and amazingly reaches the Jeep over 2 miles away. While she gets inside and speeds away, she's mortified to discover vines beneath her face. This alludes to the notion that she was doing exactly what the parasitic organism wanted the entire time, giving it a new feeding ground. Tragically, the next day, just as Jeff had hoped, Dimitri's friends arrive, calling out his name. With no one to warn them, it's assumed that they're about to reach the same fate, while Amy spread the vines to another region.
People come from all over the world just to see these ruins. And this one isn't even on the map. I'm not taking you to some tourist trap.
Interestingly, in an alternate ending, a caretaker is seen walking among headstones in a cemetery. Whistling Frere Jacques, he's astonished to hear the same tune coming from what is revealed to be Amy's grave covered in vines and that red flower we all love. As he reaches in, the music surges and the scene cuts to black, indicating Amy had not only spread the vines to another region of Mexico following her escape, but that upon her death, she brought it back to the States. Well, that's all for today, folks. A huge thanks to everyone who took part in the latest poll. If there's anything else you guys want me to cover, please let me know in the comments below. As always, it's been a pleasure. Niyat here with Film Comics Explained. Thanks for stopping by.